Welcome to episode 131 of Destination Linux. This is a podcast of opinions made up of 3 of the 4 of the greatest minds ever, discussing our passion for Linux. I'm Michael, and unfortunately Noah wasn't able to make it this week, but joining me today, the terminal champions of Linux, Ryan and Zeb. So Zeb, how's your week been?
It's been pretty good, thank you. And yourself?
Been pretty good.
Good. Well, for me, part 2 of the Gentoo install happened on Saturday with Serge and Adrian. And I have a working Gentoo with the XFCE desktop, Firefox, and OBS. So that was quite good. There was a few hiccups, but you can go and watch the 4.5-hour video. It won't send you to sleep, I promise. But part 3 will follow, and we're going to install the rest of the apps, Steam, GPIC, Gnome disks, all that sort of stuff, and we'll see how it goes. But it's also been a fantastic week for me for distributions because, as you know, and we'll talk about it in a show later on, Endeavour has now come out. Yeah. And I just could not get it installed. So I went on the Telegram group, I went on the forums, and the Endeavour devs, of course, say that when you've had a few pints, jumped on and made me a test NVIDIA install ISO, which works flawlessly. Wow. And it's worked so well that they're now going to put it out there as an alternative. And then to top that, Eric Dubois saw I was having problems with the Arco D or the Arco Linux D installer. And this is all because the RTX 2080 Ti is still not supported fully yet by the Nouveau drivers. So he made me my own private NVIDIA ISO too.
Wow. And
that worked flawlessly. So I can proudly now say thank you, Eric Dubois. By the way, I run Arch.
Nice. That's amazing treatment you're getting there. Nobody has ever offered to make me a custom version to get my stuff working. What about you, Michael?
I've never had that level of special attention for my distros. I mean, I've had people change things for me, but it's usually these little tiny, minuscule things.
But I've never had someone create me a custom image just for me. So,
right.
We get this in the comments a lot. People just like Zeb naturally. I don't know why.
It is weird. It's
like they would see the behind the scenes show, you would know he's a troll. He's not this nice Brit you all think he is. I'm telling you.
Yeah, people think he's tickety-boo, but he's very trolly.
But anyway, that just proves what an awesome community we have.
Yeah, that is actually amazing.
Yeah, that is awesome.
And you've got Arch now and Gentoo, so 2 very known to be difficult distros installed. Are you ready to make a call on which one you like the most?
Oh, I like Arch better. There's absolutely no way I would even consider doing a Gentoo install myself. Even if you just go for the Gen kernel, there's no guarantee it's going to work. And the Gen kernel didn't work with my graphics card or the Threadripper. So to have to wade through, I guess, 2,000 little bits and pieces that you could tick or untick or not use and use. How on earth is anyone supposed to know that depth of knowledge about their particular equipment? It's just ridiculous. So yeah, Arch all day long.
Yeah.
Now, is this a situation where, and I'm not picking on NVIDIA here, but is this a situation where most of your problems are running from the GPU side because of the proprietary driver, or is this other things as well?
It's a mixture of the Threadripper being generation 2 and still too new. And Serge reckons it will probably be about another year before it's fully integrated into these kernel parameters that everybody knows. So with that Threadripper and my graphics card, they pose...
You've got a perfect storm, kind of.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that the Gentoo is a rolling distribution, but it doesn't roll quickly.
No.
Like, there's a lot of cases where there's things that will take, up to a year or more to get in there. So it's technically rolling, but not like Arch speed rolling.
Yeah. But what was fantastic was like you'd get Serge there saying, okay, I'm really sorry now, we've now got an hour and a half wait. And then 25 minutes later, the Threadripper's gone, boom, thank you very much, next.
Nice.
So that was good. That was good. Cool. And I'm enjoying it. I have not got a clue what I'm doing, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, good learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's always good too. So Ryan, what have you gotten yourself into?
Well, everybody knows what I've gotten myself into. The Ryzen 9 3900X is what I've been getting myself into. So awesome. I built the machine. The new beast has been built, and I put the first video out there. And people are really enjoying it. I was actually surprised on this particular video because I ran into issues where I lost a lot of the video footage I had done. So I ended up just doing everything in one run. But I think I got a lot into this. You've got the build being filmed in here. And it's at super 200 times speed because I didn't want to bore people with a 2-hour building session. But so you can watch the build actually take place at the end, or most of the pieces come together. You got the new Thermaltake P5 case in there. You've got, of course, some of the benchmarks, although I'm doing a whole new video now, which is just going to be benchmarks and gaming and things like that to show the variation. Although, as you guys know, I don't like to put a whole lot of emphasis on benchmarks. It's what everybody uses as their guide. So I'm going to mix those benchmarks with actual gameplay.
I was going to say, you always use your experience. Well, here it is with this and here it is with that. So for me, that's the perfect benchmarking.
Yeah, and I like how Phoronix does it a lot too, although a lot of theirs is just benchmarking, because once you're in a game, a benchmark is made for this perfect parameters, to kind of emphasize on this, right? Where everything is set in a perfect manner, and you don't have little things like internet connection interrupts, or everything's coded perfectly to push your card to the extreme. But the reality is, when you get into these games, it's a completely different story, right? There are certain sections of games that are coded inferior, that aren't rendering correctly. There are all kinds of problems that your GPU has to and your CPU has to overcome. And that's why benchmarks give you this idea of what a card can do, but it's not always the reality of what you're going to experience when you're using it. And then there's this extreme focus on just gaming and benchmarks, whereas there are a lot of people who want to know, okay, what about rendering? What about multitasking? What about all these things that come together? So I'm going to try to do a mix where you get to see the benchmarks, but also get to see the real life experience of playing the game. And you will see in that video just how different the two things are from one another there. So that the Ryzen 9 3900X has been a fantastic experience. It's the CPU. First of all, I couldn't get the 2700X, as Michael can attest to get over what's the highest we saw it get
was
to?
It like 32% usage, and that was while it was playing a game, while it was also recording, and while it was using Proton to do everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, I couldn't even get that thing to have any issues. So 3900X is complete overkill out there, but it's been a lot of fun playing with it. The big problem, though, is AMD still has not released, well, supposedly they've released the patch, but the AMD motherboard manufacturers have not released the BIOS update. And so I am still only can use one distro here, which isn't a bad thing because the distro happens to be a great one, Pop! OS, but it's the only one that I can really play with right now to use. So,
I mean, it's good that they did that. At least someone took some time to make sure that it's able to use this hardware in the with the community, whatever. Like, so at least there's that. But I did want to point out that there's this one part of your video that I was like, because I was really interested in see also how you were building out the case, because you got this new really slick looking case. And when during the intro to the build part, you were saying something like, this is not a case for the average user, the average person who would want to build a thing. And I'm like, well, I've built computers before. This is not going to be that big a deal. And then I'm watching your building. I was like, never mind.
Yeah, this case not only has 4 instructions, but it's a modder's case. So it comes with 100 parts. And the instructions are poor, and you would have to just know where a lot of this stuff goes. And you can see at some point my wife's hands in there helping hold a flashlight to read the markings on the case to see where an ATX form factor, the bolts would go to hold the motherboard, because it's just so poorly inscribed and things. There are great things about the case. I love its open air. I love you can clean it. I love you can mod it and hang it on a wall. But it is not a beginner's case by any stretch of the imagination. But so, Michael, what have you been up to this week?
Well, I've been doing a lot of stuff. I've been improving some workflows about how we're doing the show, and I've also been testing out some Endeavour Os, which fortunately for me, I'm using AMD, and I don't have to deal with the kind of stuff that Zeb was dealing with. But I tested out Endeavour, and we're going to get into Endeavour a little bit later in the show, and I think that Endeavour's has a lot of potential. But first, I actually wanted to take this time to kind of bring up something a little bit different, and also something that Ryan has no idea I'm about to say. And that is, this show is, we all do our own part in this show. But I wanted to give some credit to Ryan for all the work that he's been doing. for the making this show and over the couple of years that he's been doing the show as well. So when this episode releases, will actually be the 2nd year anniversary for Ryan becoming a host of Destination Linux.
Wow.
And it will also be a marker of his 100th episode as a host of Destination Linux. So I wanted to give credit to Ryan and thank you for so much. And also,
cool.
I assume I can speak for everybody that we would like to thank you for doing so much for the show and making sure that this happened and being around for so long to make sure that it continues and give us opportunity for me and Zeb to join and all that. So wanted to give you a little bit of recognition for it because it's fantastic that you've help us make this show every week.
Well, thank you so much. That is surprising. Is that what you guys were alluding to at the beginning? You guys had this little secret at the before we were. Oh, you had another troll thing going. No, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's awesome to hear. I had no idea that this is the 100th episode. That's very cool.
The fact that you a couple episodes ago, you were just like, I have the I've been around the longest. I've been on the most episodes, and I was like, I wonder how many that actually is. And then it was like, this is perfect. I have to make a thing about it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for doing that research. And the show wouldn't be the same without you guys, so I appreciate that.
Yeah,
thanks.
Absolutely.
All right, for our email this week, we have, hi there. First of all, you have a great podcast. Thank you very much. On the episode 129, I think Zeb asked listeners to suggest what they use and what they can recommend. My recommendation would be Linux Manjaro for stable and up-to-date software and i3 as a desktop manager. I would love to see project that would join KDE Plasma with all the ecosystem for notifications, battery, alarms, plus a million other eye candy, but Windows management in i3 is simply amazing. In my opinion, this is how the computer desktop should be in the first place. With best regards, Tom. So, of course, you're going to easily get your email read on air when you mention i3. So, good job. But no,
and Plasma.
I love Manjaro. And I used it for a long time before I ever could figure out how to run Arch. And Manjaro has definitely accomplished that ease of install situation that, most people stay away from Arch because of it being so difficult to install. And Manjaro just makes it click, 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 boom, you're done. And then adding i3 in there, this email is especially important because today in playing in Pop! OS and Gnome, I realized there is no pre-tiling setup, which is so odd to me. KDE and everybody has pre-tiling keyboard shortcuts. Some you may have to go in and turn them on, but I've never seen it where they don't appear to exist. So I guess you have to install a Gnome extension. So yeah, having tiling is very important. Like when we do the show, I have to have a screen where I can see all of the cast, and then I have to have notes up here, and then I have chat boxes for people who are watching the show live. And you can't really do that effectively unless you manually manipulate Windows without tiling. And that's where i3 simply stands out and dominates because it's so easy to implement and do. KDE, as Michael will say, definitely has a lot of those features, but they're a little more buried and
they're not easy access. You have to turn them on and stuff. And like some cases, they have a little bit of tiling, like the anchor points of the left and right, like that kind of thing. But if you want the full tiling, you have to go and turn them on in the settings and stuff. But there's also I'm not sure how well supported or maintained it is, but I saw someone made a modification to KWin to actually have i3 tiling functionality in it, and they call it Tiler with a 3 instead of an E. So like that's the reference point for it. So it's pretty cool. I tried it a couple times, and it does work quite well. And there's some things that you can kind of make it sort of having i3 in Plasma, but it might even be possible to replace KWin if you wanted to. But either way, I mean, it's really cool. I think that tiling is important, and yeah, once I started using tiling, it's very hard to go back.
Yep, absolutely. Zeb, do you use tiling at all?
Only that which I manually do when I'm doing a particular activity. So if I'm playing a game, I have to have the game window in the middle, so it's only me that puts it there. I don't specifically. Yes, I'm on KDE a lot of the time now, but I don't necessarily use the always open this here, always open that there, because I have no set workflow. It'll just be what feels right for the day. And it's crazy because some days I'll just use these two monitors in front of me and on my right, and the one on the left just sits there showing this lovely picture of a mountain. And on another day, my neck will get a crick, so I'll use this monitor to do things. So I have no set workflow, but I've tried using i3 and other tiling managers. It's just my brain doesn't work that way.
Yeah, some of them are more involved, and i3 is definitely one of those. Once you get it set up, it's great. And I guess it wasn't fair for me to say that KDE it's buried in i3. It's easier because that's not really the case.
It's not easier in i3, no, because it's i3 and all tiling. All the window managers that are tiling for specifics, there's nothing easy about them.
No.
It's just set up more fluidly about like the tiling aspects.
Yeah, and in KDE, it doesn't necessarily call it tiling. It's when you right mouse click on the title bar and go to more actions, there are special window settings and special
there's also tiling in Plasma. You can totally do, yeah. You can do tiling in Plasma. The window rules is what you're talking about, and window rules are awesome. I need to make a video about it. I kind of did at one point, but like window rules is super powerful. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. Even control like the automatic transparency of a window or whatever. But the window tiling, there's actually shortcuts that are not on by default for some reason, but they allow you to do quick tile for every corner, vertical, full screen vertical, full screen horizontal, from different like edge points and stuff. So you can do all kinds of tiling with Plasma, but only the basics are on by default.
So it's interesting. One of our patrons said that they use the super arrow keys in Gnome to tile, and that's enough for them. What's interesting is that is the default in most DEs, XFCE, KDE. You hold super shift, and if you have the window, and you can move it to right, left, top, bottom, and that's kind of the minimal tiling that you can do in most desktop environments. At least in Pop! OS that I'm on now, those shortcuts do not work. So maybe it's something with that Pop! OS does where they turn that off or not, but holding super shift and the arrow keys does not move. In fact, what it does instead is switches workspaces. So
but you don't necessarily use the shift. You just go super left and it will put it fully left.
Yeah, it's not doing that either for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying it right now. So it looks like maybe they've made some changes in there, or my specific version, it didn't get installed right. Who knows? But to me, that is kind of basic. There are extensions, of course, you can get for Gnome and other things. But yes, i3, once you learn it and get in there, to me, is one of the best. Now, others will say there are other great tiling managers out there, and they probably are. Xmonad, all of these other ones. You've heard me and some other folks argue which one is the best in a joking manner. But the reality is it's whichever one you take the time to learn the code for, you're going to be able to do all the cool things with it. But what Michael, I wanted to talk about, the rules for Windows, which makes i3 more powerful than just tiling, and you can do this in KDE as well, is you can have certain rules set up so that when a specific app opens, it always goes into, say, the right-hand corner of your second monitor, or always opens in your second workspace. Or when it opens a second workspace and names that workspace something like photography. So you could see how when you get these tiling managers working, you get this whole workflow that as soon as you boot up your computer, automatically open every app you use, put it in the proper workspace, tile it where you want it, and you don't have to touch anything. And that's kind of what a tiling manager full-on can accomplish.
Yeah. I mean, the window rules in whatever window manager you're using is awesome because it allows you to have like complete control over your stuff, like the ability to like position wherever you want in the workspace, whatever you want, which monitor you want it on, like position like the actual pixels of it, the width and height and the pixels of like the location of the on the screen. So you don't have to just say put it on this monitor and hopefully it goes where you want. You can say this particular pixels from this point, anchor point of this window, and like there's all kinds of stuff you can do with window rules, and i3 and Plasma have those features, and there's other DEs and window managers that have window rules, but like there's so much value to it. Like it's almost impossible for me not to have them at this point. Like I was using another DE recently, and I was like, wait, I have to manually move. No, this is not acceptable.
So we want to hear from you, our listeners, and the email that we've just read out is a classic example. It doesn't have to be a rambling monologue of your Linux journey. It could be a simple thing that you like this because of X, Y, Z. So keep sending those emails in, and you never know, you might be on the show next week. Send us your favorite Linux software or your tip and trick. We would love to know what tools make your Linux experience amazing. Is there perhaps a specific topic you would like us to cover? Is there something that we're doing wrong? Send your email to comments@destinationlinux.org.
This episode of Destination Linux is sponsored by DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean offers the simplest, most developer-friendly cloud platform. It's optimized to make managing and scaling apps easy with an intuitive API, integrated firewalls, multiple storage options, load balancers, and more. You can get all this plus access to their world-class customer support for as low as $5 per month, or you can use their flexible pricing structure for as low as 0.7 cents per hour. That's darn near free. And the DigitalOcean also has 2,000 cloud-agnostic tutorials to help you stay up to date with the latest open-source software, languages, and frameworks. You can get started on DigitalOcean for 1 month for free with a $50 credit by going to do.co/DL. Again, you can get started on DigitalOcean with that $50 credit by going to do.co/DL. And we thank DigitalOcean again for sponsoring Destination Linux.
So before we move on from DigitalOcean real quick, I got my power bill, Michael, for my server. And it raised my power bill $100 a month. So sometimes it's better just to go to the cloud, because imagine what kind of spin up I could do on DigitalOcean for $100 a month instead of running an old IBM server that I have. And my wife and I, because the billing's 1 month behind, just realized this $100 a month increase from the server. So I think I'm going to be moving some of that stuff over to DigitalOcean.
That makes sense.
A ton of money.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
So up first in the show is a distro that we talked about earlier, and that is Endeavour Os. So maybe you've been wanting to try Arch Linux, but the installation process makes it not, worth doing to you, or maybe the bleeding edge aspect of the distro holds you back, or something like that. Maybe you have used Linux before or Arch Linux before, but you don't really want to devote the time to installing it the Arch way. Then maybe Endeavour is something you should check out, because the goal for Endeavour Os is to offer an easy-to-use installer to get Arch Linux up and running in a more user-friendly way. So Endeavour Os just released their first stable release, which includes an offline installer that installs a lightly themed XFCE desktop ready to customize to meet your needs and however you want to do it. Now, because this, if you haven't heard of it, Intergos was a distribution that was created and for a few years ago, like 7 years ago, and they decided to end the development of the project. Endeavour Os is a successor to Intergos to kind of keep the community going and give it a new direction and a new path. And Endeavour also is going to be creating an online installer that gives you options to install multiple DEs in multiple different window managers, up to 10 different options actually. They've listed on their website what those are. That's going to be base, which means no DE or window manager, i3, KDE Plasma, OpenBox, Mate, XFCE, Cinnamon, Gnome, Budgie, and Deepin. So those are things that are like the first version of the stable release does not have the net install, but that is planned to coming in the next month or so. They haven't really said exactly when. But I have personally tried not only the stable release, but also the beta releases of Endeavour, and I have to say it's quite good. I mean, even the beta releases was surprisingly good. So have either one of you tried it recently? I know, Zeb, you said you tried it with the getting the stuff with the extra help. But I did, yeah. What is your opinion of the experience?
Initially, it was, here we go again. Here's another, distro that's coming out, and they can't get the basics right because I couldn't get it to install. But it was the response I got from the community that I found astonishing. It's a brand new. Okay, I know it's Antigos, and they've all moved sideways and come across, but sometimes it takes you a little while to build up that rapport. But they saw that I was here trying my hardest to get this OS installed, so I was getting all sorts of tips and suggestions. Have you done this? Have you done that? And then, as I say, one of the devs reached out to me on the forum and said, look, we've made this NVIDIA ISO. Would you mind testing it for us? It's not going to go anywhere until you tell us it works. So I burnt it, put it on, and then 30 minutes later, I'm running Endeavour Os. Now, the thing I like about it is, okay, I haven't done it the Arch way, but I'm still running Arch because they don't put any special tips or tricks on there. They give you the most minimal XFCE desktop. And then they've already got instructions. Well, if you don't like XFCE, this is how you take it off. This is how you put KDE on. This is how you put Gnome on. This is how you put XYZ on. And whether you go to the Telegram group or you go to their discourse forum, they are so responsive. And it just works. It's simple. It's a nice Calamares installer. The only thing I've got about Calamares is if you've got a complicated system, it doesn't tell you what's installed on which partition.
Yeah.
So unless you've made a mental note, right, it's SDA7, but then when you boot up that ISO, is SDA7 really SDA7 or did it get moved to SDB7? So you have to be very careful and really know what's installed where. But if you've just got a straightforward installer system, it works fantastic. It really does. It's a good introduction to Arch, and I think it's going to be a good way to learn Arch as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Michael, you introduced me when you actually came down to Georgia and hung out with me. You introduced me to Endeavour. I'd heard about it, but you're like, no, you need to really check this thing out.
Yep.
And so I installed it there and live on one of my laptops and absolutely installed flawlessly. Of course, it has the perfect setup, right? It's a Intel GPU, so you're not going to have any problems there. And a pretty base Dell XPS, I think, is what I installed it on. And I did the Lenovo. Actually, I did the IBM X1 Carbon is what I installed it on, and absolutely went flawlessly. And I've been using it ever since. As a pure Arch user, I've installed Arch multiple times, even at my own lug for people, or helped install for individuals. I can't imagine it being any closer to Arch if you tried. Like I would have a hard time if you took away the wallpaper, not knowing that somebody installed Endeavour and not just pure Arch, because like you said, it's so minimal, Zeb. They don't put any of the unnecessary packages and things in there. And I think it's still, what I like about it is I get the Arch install is a terrible experience, and most people are not going to ever want to touch it. But there's so much within Arch past the install that it does so well, from the speed, from being rolling and stable, from being able to get so many packages that are available out there, not only from Pacman, but also the AUR directly. Like, it's just so well done, and people don't get that experience because of that install. And Endeavour gives you all of those abilities to enjoy Arch without that painful experience, if you don't want to go through it, of installing Arch. But you still have to learn, which is what I like about Endeavour, meaning you're not going to be able to use a GUI package manager that does everything for you right off the bat. You're going to still have to learn some things in there to use it. And they're not difficult things to learn. But so if you do eventually go to a pure Arch, you're going to feel right at home because you've already accomplished those things within Endeavour. I love it. I love everything about it. And Michael, you've helped with this project. In fact, they even gave you a shout out in their notes on this release. So congratulations on that, of backing an awesome project.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I gave them some advice because people who might not be aware, I used to be a contributor to the Intergos team. I was a part of the team in a variety of ways, doing some like bug fixes and testing and doing community management and stuff like that. So I've had a lot of experience with Intergos, and there was actually quite a few things that, as a fan of Intergos, I didn't really like about Intergos. And when Endeavour announced that they were going to be continuing the path that Intergos had started, I immediately was like, okay, so maybe this has weight as someone who was working with Intergos, but I don't know. But here's some things that I think that you shouldn't do that Intergos did, and things that you should do that Intergos did. And they essentially adopted everything that I said. And it was such a smooth transition to, have a conversation with them, that they were very receptive. And even when they didn't really disagree, they went back and discussed it amongst themselves, and then came back and said, well, ask me about my opinion on this other thing. And then it kind of molded into like more contributions. And it's got so much potential because of they're so open to the community. They are so attentive to the community. Anytime someone has an issue, like Zeb said, they are very attentive on their forum, on their Telegram group, like all kinds of stuff. If you need some help or just want to like trying to find out more information about it, they are absolutely willing to be there and provide that help. And one of their main goals of their distribution is also to have like a very friendly community. And
I love that.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it's interesting because they do want to keep it as close to Arch as possible, but also want to make it beginner friendly in the sense that even if you do have problems, they still want to be there to help you to do it. And it's a really cool idea because one of the things about Interrogos is that they wanted to change so much that it wasn't really Arch. Now, it was 100% compatible with Arch, but there was significant changes that made it a problem in some ways. Whereas Endeavour is so close to Arch that you could kind of just say you're running Arch, even though you are running some modifications.
Honestly, the only reason I would install Arch right now, besides Endeavour, would be just so I could remember the steps to practice and make sure it stays fresh. Because at this point, if I need Arch, I'm just going to install Endeavour if I need it quickly, because it's like you said, it's so close to it. And I do want to make a special point. You talked about the community being friendly and they're really reaching out. And so just ask in general, and I saw this on their newsletter, that to keep the positive comments coming to this team so that they can keep that positive vibe. Because if they start getting a bunch of people, oh, NVIDIA is not working, you junk, you're blah, 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 and all of this type of negativity, then it could turn into another situation where you have another Arch distro that kind of closes their community down because people aren't realizing you're dealing with a more sophisticated distro at the end of the day.
Right.
And so definitely give the feedback like Michael and Zeb done, but do it in a way that is, kind and courteous. Thank you for your work here. Here's the problem I ran into. Can you help me out? And if you see something like the new updates and things, just go in there and say, thanks, congratulations, consider donating. I know that I was going to donate to them, but their current, at the time, the only donation option they had was some site in Germany that I just personally, the text didn't translate and I didn't feel comfortable putting my info in, but they said new donation platforms are coming out eventually for PayPal and other things to make available. So I will definitely be donating. So consider supporting them for a donation as well. Because this is something needed in Arch really bad. And as far as having a really clean installation process on something that gives you that true Arch experience, we only have a couple options out there off the top of my head. You have Arco, you have Manjaro, and Endeavour really are the three that I can think of. I know there are more, but those are the three that really seem to stand out.
Yeah, those are the three that really kind of want to be the installer type, not just, they want to help you use Arch, but like Manjaro does so much more on top of it that it's not really even close enough to Arch to call it
custom Arch.
Yeah, it's so different that it's its own distro, which is totally fine, of course, but that just it just means you're not really using Arch as close. Whereas Arco Linux or Endeavour, you really can get close to it depending on you want to do it. But the Arco is more about learning how to do it, and Endeavour is trying to basically get there as quick as possible, but still have a good experience. So I actually kind of thought it was kind of funny where how the phrase of the keep it simple, or the KISS principle that Arch always claims that they have is nah, not really. But Endeavour does kind of make it possible, so you can get there easily and quickly, and you could still start to learn. And when I was having conversations with some of the Endeavour developers, I was making a suggestion about wouldn't this necessarily here's a thing I ran into, and it's not necessarily a problem, but it's maybe like a philosophical issue that might create a breakpoint for beginners who have never used it before. And their response is, well, we know that it could create an issue, but what we're trying to do is make it so people can learn, so they would learn from that issue, and they could come to us, and we'll have a notification saying that this issue could happen. It's not a guarantee. It's just it potentially might happen depending on a small percentage, and they want to help people learn through those experiences, and also to help them on the forums to learn through the structure of being guided to it. So it's not just an installer. They are fully committed to the idea of being a way to people to learn to use Arch, and I think that's a great idea. And also, it's definitely worth pointing out that this distribution has been around for a very small amount of time, and the amount of work that they have done in such a small amount of time, and have accomplished so much in maybe 2 months. That is a ridiculous like accomplishment right there, because they've been
a really good point. But keep in mind too that this just came out of beta, so just to kind of punch down on that point.
It's the first ever stable release of a distribution that has been around for 2 months, that is trying to do something very different. And like, while it is impressive that they've done so much, it is still very early days. So don't like expect it to be like a completely flawless experience. But so far for me, it has been quite a good experience.
Yeah, and here's an interesting twist for you. If you want a very good review, not so much review, of a look and insight into Endeavour, go to Eric Dubois' site, because he's done a YouTube of how to install Endeavour, and then his little Arco twist is and install the Sardi icon set. But he really goes, like you just said, Michael, in depth into they've only been around for 6 or 7 weeks, and yet look, they've got this fantastic website, they've got this wiki that's got at least 40 articles on it already. They've done tremendous work in such a short space of time.
Don't you love that you have somebody who manages a completely different distro teaching you how to install another distro? Like, but that's Eric. He taught me Arch. Like that, I say that all the time to people. If it wasn't for Eric, I'd have never gotten into Arch. But his videos that he does, his educational stuff, just gets you so prepped to be ready to take on Arch in any form or fashion that you want. And that's what makes it so powerful. Now, I do want to mention one thing. We received a comment on one of our last videos, and I've seen this a couple of times, about why won't Arch make an easy installer, or I'm not going to use Arch yet because they haven't figured out how to do an installer. Pure Arch is, as I understand it, is never going to have a simple installer. It is not their goal at the end of the day. They basically go out there, and that's part, believe it or not, of their KISS principle of keeping it simple, is not throwing GUIs and other things on top of things that could overcomplicate stuff. I do think at some point, these distros like Endeavour that are throwing the GUI installers on are kind of the future of Arch for most people. Not that there won't be a group of people like there are today that constantly want to do the manual thing themselves and only install their own stuff. But I think that there will be a point, because Arch is getting so much more popular right now, especially even with Steam. Yeah, the Steam, recently released their new shaders for AMD, and instead of being Ubuntu first, they came out with Arch first. So you're going to see a lot of, I think, more push towards Arch, but it's not going to be towards Arch the Archway. It's probably going to be towards a Manjaro and Endeavour or something along those lines. I think that it's growing in popularity, but you're never going to see that in a pure, probably never going to see that in a pure Arch.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They technically had a installer that was not, it wasn't like a GUI installer like the way that Endeavour or Manjaro works, but they had an installer many years ago, and they realized that they didn't really want even to do that to the point that they did. So they pulled that back out completely. So I agree. The likelihood is that they're not going to be doing any kind of simple installer, because that kind of defeats the point of what Arch is meant to be. It is meant to be a very fast rolling distribution, and even in the sense of like hardcore usage, because because it rolls so fast, and you are getting access to things that are potentially problematic. They want the people who are using like direct Arch to have the experience to be able to solve the problem that they might accomplish themselves or run into themselves. So the Archway is more like designed for that purpose. But I like the idea that if you want to at least experience Arch, there are other distributions that give you the access to do so. And then at some point, maybe in the future, you could do the full Archway.
Yep.
Or you're like me and lazy and don't want to do it again.
So next up in the news is Deepin 15.11 released. We haven't talked about Deepin for a while. For a minute there, it seemed like it was hitting a lot of headlines, but we haven't had it on the show, featured it in a little bit. Deepin 15.11 released, and their tagline is "Better Never Stops." The pre-installed Deepin desktop comes with 30 Deepin native applications. So what I like about this distro, and a lot of distros that I try, is when I see that they actually go in and try to write their own applications that they customize and add some new layers to it. Otherwise, it's kind of like, why is this a separate distro? But they have 30 of their own native applications that they build that are Deepin tools, and they're probably some of them based on other open source tools out there. They put their own customized features in there.
Yeah. Some of them are very slick. Like their music player looks really cool. There are some issues with it, but there are some really cool stuff that they've done as far as like the design and aspects that they do. That they have some interesting ideas.
Well, one of these new features I thought was really interesting, although some security and privacy-minded people may be like, I don't know if I want to do that. But they have a Cloud Sync control center in 15.11 that includes syncing things like system settings from your mouse to sound to wallpaper data to all of that you may today go in there and copy those config files over if you're installing the new OS or have them in your own server somewhere and pull them down every time you do a new install. They have a Cloud Sync version of that. And I thought that was a pretty cool idea. And again, it's just grabbing your config files here to do that. They also have a disk burning functionality now built right into the Deepin file manager. So that's a pretty cool little feature.
That's not, I've never seen that actually before. It's usually a separate tool, so that's interesting.
Does anybody burn disks anymore?
No.
That's the only thing I was thinking. Like, I don't know if the other file managers even include it because I haven't burned a disk.
Well, I mean, I don't think they include it because there's other tools to do that. But I know people who still use DVDs and like they'll burn Blu-rays sometimes or whatever. But no, I haven't had an optical drive built in my computer for years. So. And
is it just disk burning or is it USB burning?
I think this one is just disk burning.
Just a disk burning.
And interesting, my new case and a lot of the new cases that are coming out have no disk drive built into them. There's nowhere to put a disk drive because nobody really, I mean, I would say nobody, a lot of people aren't using it. Now, there are special cases. I know of people, like you said, Michael, who try to archive their, or burn movies and all that type of stuff.
But there's special discs for like storage and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I think the Cloud Sync thing is a really cool thing because I want to go back to a little bit for a second because like I personally I'd prefer to have just the settings and everything stored on my own computer and I can move them myself to like with a flash drive or whatever. But I do like the idea because there's a lot of people who would be coming to like brand new users who would come in and that would be beneficial to them if they wanted to switch over to another like computer or something. Like that's a cool concept. I would prefer it to be not cloud synced, or if I could provide my own cloud for the sync, that'd be cool. But I do like the idea in general.
Yeah, because I hear a lot of devs say that the first thing, we've had them on the show, the first thing that they do when they've done a new build is they go to GitLab and they pull down all their configs.
Yeah.
Well, I'm guessing this is like the easy man's GitLab.
Yeah, very similar.
Config files you want up there, and so I can go, I'll have that, and that. Click, open up my next computer, put it down, and say, now pull them back down and put them on there, please.
Yeah, this is great.
Fantastic.
I think there's actually something I wish Plasma would do exactly like I wish KDE did this because this is something that KDE would be so much beneficial to having something like that because there's so many random files for KDE. It's like think about it.
So Michael did a custom setup on my system when he came over because I was like, I have Michael here. I'm going to have him set up my KDE. And I love a lot of the defaults that you did for it. But I started asking, okay, which config files do I need to move so that when I have another system with Plasma and you're like, okay, this starts getting complex because there's config files all over the place. But he's like, just grab these two. These are the main ones. But yeah, that's why it's so neat. It's like Firefox when you have the sync and you set it up on a new machine. As soon as you put your sync options in, boom, you've got your bookmarks, your containers, everything moves over. It's a wonderful feeling. And having this on the desktop, I think, is awesome. I think there's some security and privacy things that some people may throw out there, but as long as it's just grabbing config files, I don't see a problem.
I would agree that it's more than likely not an issue. I would just kind of like prefer, mainly because I don't really want to deal with the syncing, like having to make sure my computer's online before I can get my settings and stuff. So I just really want to have it on flash drive so I can do it much quicker and not have to worry about it, and also not have to worry if the computer's online.
The thing I like about Deepin, and it's not mentioned in this particular section because it's all about all the new stuff, but people forget how good the installer is. I haven't installed this latest version, but I've seen a couple of YouTube videos where people have done it in a virtual box. And for me, it's got to be one of the best looking and simplistic installers where, unless you are a complete numpty, you just can't get it wrong. It is just that good. And when it boots up, it's absolutely fantastic. Will I use it? No, because I still don't think they will have solved the 3-monitor conundrum. It powers up 3 monitors, and NVIDIA settings will set them up for you correctly. But the minute you go into their little side panel and try to use their utility, for me, it still does some really, really weird things. So I'm going to wait for some YouTube person to say, yeah, they fixed it, and then I'll give it another go. But does it look good? Could other people use it with just one monitor? You bet.
Yeah, I think Deepin is an interesting distro in DE and everything, because they have a lot of work done that is super custom and very, very nicely designed. Like, they have a lot of effort in their design. I think they have a little bit of, like what you're talking about with the monitor issues, like some of the back-end functionality is a little clunky, which kind of creates this weird issue where you initially are presented with this really nice polish, but the functionality is not there in some cases, depending on what you want to do with your system. But recently, not this particular version, but the one before, they, like it was 15.10, I think, they introduced a new window manager, which was a fantastic decision because their window manager was okay, but this one is the best window manager ever, and that's KWin.
Let me guess.
Exactly. So KWin is now the window manager for the Deepin desktop environment, which is very awesome because you can solve some of the problems with the way it manages the different windows because they're using KWin and don't have to worry about building their own anymore. So that is awesome. And,
yeah, one of the things I hear people complain about a lot with Deepin is the slow installs from the stores. And so I noticed in one of these updates is that the Deepin store improvements now includes automatic recognizing of your region. And I have to assume that helps them with picking the proper repo that will allow you to get your downloads and software installed quicker, because this is, as I understand, maintained in China, right? This is a Chinese. So there were a lot of people who were having issues where the downloads, when they would try to install software, would take forever because they were hopping to servers so many countries away. So this certainly should help, hopefully, with that. And they also have features in there like little things, little nice touches that add stuff in. Like if you want to add subtitles to a movie, which if you have kids, you pretty much always have to have on because you're never going to hear the movie normally. And you just drag and drop them, the file right onto the movie, and it will add the subtitles in while it's playing. So that's little cool things like that nice. That aren't game changers, but just neat little add-ons that they have in here. So yeah, Deepin's looking good.
Nice little like luxuries and stuff like that. Where like, because they do pay attention to the polish a lot. So there's like little things that you might not pay attention to that you would take for granted if you had it. But seeing them do those things like making the subtitles easy to get into it, because like typically with most things that support subtitles, you have to make sure that the subtitle file is the exact same file as the video that you were watching, and you have to go make sure that it is there before you load it. So just get like, okay, here's the thing for that particular movie, boom, done. Like that's awesome.
Okay, so let's move on to some software news now, and we're going to start talking about Office suites. And whilst I learned about this particular Office suite a couple of years ago, it's probably the one that just sort of like disappears into your back of your mind and you don't think to use it. So OnlyOffice 5.3 has been released. It's an Office suite in Linux, and there's a lot of them have been talked about lately. We've seen updates from WP Office, SoftMaker Office, and FreeOffice. So this week, OnlyOffice includes 3 tools, much like Microsoft Office, including a comparable Word, Excel, and PowerPoint variable. So particular features that they've got for in this release include editing pictures, flip, rotate, etc., without plugins, connect to the desktop apps for the cloud, i.e. OwnCloud, NextCloud, etc., save documents as MS Office Open XML documents, DOTX, LXTX, and POTX, open document templates, OTT, OTS, and OTP. They've got an ISO standardized PDF support for audio and video files in presentations. Nice. They've got a send plugin that allows you to send your document via the default mail client. They have support for the Chinese language, and they have toolbar button placement tweaks. So I installed this, and I suddenly remembered this actually a year or so ago was my favorite Office suite. So why did I forget to install it next time round? I don't know, but the community just doesn't seem to talk about this as much as they do LibreOffice and or Microsoft Office because everybody's comparing it to Microsoft Office. It's crazy. It's a great Office suite.
It's really interesting you say that, Zeb, because I've heard a lot of these different Office suites, and I've ignored them because everybody seems to be like, no, LibreOffice, that's the way to go, and don't look back. Now, Michael and I have been doing a lot more of document transfers between each other and having to work with different entities and things, and this has caused a situation where they're sending us a lot of files in Word docs and things along those lines. And I started to see the weakness of LibreOffice at that point. And I sent you a screenshot to our internal group showing opening the file, a docx file, in OpenOffice or LibreOffice versus OnlyOffice. And you could see OnlyOffice keeps the format perfect. Everything is there exactly as if you opened it in Word. Whereas LibreOffice, you can see it cut out certain headings. Things are misformatted. The font size isn't quite right. So I started looking into this some more, and apparently OnlyOffice, and I don't have all of the details behind this, and I want to do more research on it, but uses an open format which is more popular called OOXML, whereas LibreOffice uses ODF. And since OOXML, again, is according to some articles, is more popular, it's usually allows them to, you're going to see a lot more documents and things utilizing that format, and it's a lot more easier for them to transition to from Microsoft Word to these type of formats. Because let's face it, whether we like Office or not, it's the dominant Office suite out there that you want to use. And if you need to communicate with other people that utilize it, for instance, you're sending resumes in or important documents, you don't have the luxury of wanting them to open your document in Word and seeing a bunch of scribbled, scrabble stuff all over the place and misplaced fonts and such. So I'm actually going to switch to using OnlyOffice for a little bit to see how it works. But my experience right now has been, oh my gosh, where has this been? I love the Nextcloud integration that they have built in, so I can send the documents directly there into my Nextcloud instance or save them directly to my Nextcloud instance. I love the setup. It is very ridiculously close to Office, which I have to use at work. So there's no relearning where buttons are at or anything else. And it seems really clean. So I'm interested to know what our audience thinks, if they leave in the comments or send us emails letting us know if they've checked out OnlyOffice or maybe one of the reasons why it's not popular. I know they have paid for versions. Maybe that's causing some of the constraint, but they have the free version too, so I don't have an issue with that.
And it's not like you can't get it on your distribution, because it's available as an app image, a snap, and a deb file. And if you go onto the AUR, you can get OnlyOffice TAC bin. So all distributions are covered. There's no reason why you shouldn't give this a whirl and see how it performs. It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's actually kind of funny, because we were when we were doing the document stuff, as Ryan mentioned, there was some they sent in some like Windows files, like Excel files and stuff. And when I loaded up in LibreOffice and it didn't work, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try OnlyOffice. So I loaded it up and it worked perfectly fine. And I had no issues. And I've had that installed since. And OnlyOffice is like surprisingly good. But it also is worth pointing that it is only like 3 different applications. Like it's not like a whole suite of everything. They have PowerPoint, Excel, and Word type stuff. They don't have everything like Access and everything else. But it is a pretty good application, and I'm actually kind of torn, because the reason why OOXML is the most popular and the most used and well supported, Microsoft made it.
But it's open.
Technically.
And Microsoft loves Linux, so what's the problem?
Well, I mean, technically it's not fully, it's open, yes. But it's not like fully accurate to the standard of stuff, so that like they have their little bit of custom stuff. And that's why there's this weird issue between LibreOffice and the standards, because they use the regular standard, whereas Microsoft's OOXML is technically, yes, a standard, but it doesn't really, it's not really fully compatible with the other standards, so... it's that kind of thing. But at the same time, if you need to do work, you need to get work done, and you don't want to use Microsoft Office and you still want to use Linux, OnlyOffice is a good solution for that.
And what's crazy about that is because they have provided that open standard, or not open standard, but their open standard, they can't really have a go at OpenOffice for making it look like Microsoft.
There you go. One thing to note for people when you go to download it, because this did confuse me. When you go to download, you're going to see Enterprise Edition, Integration Edition, Developer Edition. You want to click on Desktop Editors, and that is where you'll get the free one. If you choose any of the others, those are obviously enterprise and things where they're charging people for those services that they offer on top of it, like cloud features built in and all that. So you don't have to set up your own Nextcloud instance. There's all kinds of things they have built in. But if you want the free, just play with it. They have the GitHub page, of course, where you can just do it from source if you want, or they have a deb and RPM, and as Zeb mentioned, a snap package and an app image as well. So they have hit every single package pretty much out there to give you an option. No matter what distro on, you can check out this tool.
So let's move on to some hardware news, and let's talk about first the GPD Micro Pc has been announced. It's been in like a backing on Indiegogo or Kickstarter. I'm not sure which one for a while, but it is now made point that the first Ubuntu Mate 1910 Alpha is now available, but only for the GPD Micro PC. So this is pretty interesting because it's Martin talked about it on the Ubuntu podcast about how he had access to it like early in order to make this work, and it's still, of course, an alpha. But he was impressed by all the hardware because he's actually been a backer of the GPD stuff for a while. It's like he has the Pocket 1 and the Pocket 2, and this is an interesting thing because the GPD Micro PC looks like it's a very small 6-inch device that has a ridiculous amount of hardware. It has 8 gigs of RAM. It has an Intel UHD 620 processor and motherboard, and it has a lot of nicety stuff like the backlit keyboard and all this other stuff. It is kind of expensive though. It's a $399 device, and it offers the ability to run Windows 10 and Ubuntu Mate 1810, or now the new snapshot of 1910. So it's an interesting thing because as someone who's been in the Linux world for a very long time, I pay attention to all kinds of different new devices that are coming out. And when the GPD first came out, I was super excited because they were like shipping it as, it's a Linux device and a Windows device if you want to. Mm-hmm. Then the Pocket 2 comes out and it's just a Windows device. And then now the Micro PC comes out and not only are they doing work with like Linux as trying to get support for Linux, they're even doing integration with like different desktop like developers or distro developers and having them get access to the hardware testing to make sure it's all good and have everything ready by the time it comes out, so you can just install the distribution right immediately. So it's like I'm torn because one, I like the fact that they're doing this kind of small form factor but powerful device, and then also with the history around it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, and that the initial interest for me with GPD back in the day was the fact that they advertised Linux, and back then hardware there wasn't a lot of choices when it came to hardware on Linux. Even a couple years ago, we're talking here, that has changed substantially since that point. I think System 76 is blown up. You've got hardware from Lenovo. You've got hardware from Dell. You've got a lot of options out there. When GPD removed on their 2, I think, like you said, you could put Linux on it, but they didn't really advertise it. I lost a lot of appetite for it. But in this new one, at least, they do mention specifically in the Indiegogo page Ubuntu Mate and Windows 10 first, and then Ubuntu Mate as an option. This is the future, right? We have to get to the point where the distros are working close with the hardware manufacturers. Not just one, but like all of them. Mm-hmm. And so that we're getting this testing and we're able to compete with other OSs that do have those relationships as well and do make sure that hardware works on their new OSs, and not just say, well, if it doesn't work, whatever, they do their own thing, and not picking certain groups that we support. But beside that, I love that Wimpy has had a chance to get this ahead of time. This is a very unique device. It's a very small screen, 6 inches. You could technically probably stuff this device in your pocket. Mm-hmm. I like this type of thing. In fact, I'm going on a business trip soon. This is a cool little device you could pop out in an airport instead of opening a full laptop. And supposedly the keyboard's still very comfortable to utilize. And also if you're into networking and need a little portable device to get into a server manually. It has all the RJ45 connectors, Type-C connectors, USB connections, RS-232 connections built into this little 6-inch device. So you could use it for network administrative work and things like that as well. So it is a cool little device. And this is actually the cheaper one. They usually are $599 plus, at least the one I was looking at. So they have come out with this is cheaper than they normally would run for this device. Right. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited that they're backing Mate and that we have a chance to get Linux working properly on the device before it releases. And it looks pretty cool. I don't know if I'll end up getting one, but it looks neat.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because when I went to the meetup with a load of Linux guys in Reading, Wimpy bought the two that he had with him, the first edition one and the second edition one. And I went, well, do us a favor, open it up and power it up because that looks ridiculously small. Is it usable? Open up the screen, put your hands on the keyboard. And yes, for those short trips or sitting on a train or on a plane, it was amazingly good at how you could see the screen and the detail of the screen. And it wasn't like squinting like you do at your phone sometimes.
Right.
It was a perfectly usable piece of kit. And yeah, this looks promising.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually pretty interesting. I got a chance to try out. It was either GPD Pocket 1 or 2. I'm not sure, but a couple, like not this past year, but the year before itself. One of the community members, Keith, he brought his GPD Pocket, and when I tried it out, I expected it to not like it because it was so small, and I don't really like the small devices beyond like a phone or a tablet. And the keyboard was surprisingly good. Like I expected it to be terrible because usually the small devices have terrible keyboards, but it wasn't the best experience because it was kind of awkward at where they had the touch bar and stuff, or not touch bar, but the touch point where they put that. But it was still quite good, especially for such a small device. So I think that there's a lot of potential for this, and if people want to have something that's fairly reasonably priced, but a little bit. In my opinion, I'm super cheap, so people could probably ignore that part. But like it has a very reasonable benefit of having like a travel laptop because when I try to travel with my regular laptop, I basically just completely ignore it and never want to open it. So something like this.
I noticed that you end up using the Pinebook more than your regular because you brought both to self, and the whole time I pretty much saw you on your Pinebook instead because. I guess it's lighter and easier to wield around. It's
lighter, it's easier, it's more efficient. The battery life I don't have to worry about. Like I tested it one time where if you have it on idle, the Pinebook was like, I don't know, 20 hours of battery life. And while I was using it, it was about anywhere between 8 to 10 hours of battery life, depending on what I'm doing. Whereas my big bulky laptop that does like the extra power and stuff, I'm lucky if I get 2 hours. So like I even if I do bring it with me, I almost never turn it on while I'm traveling because it's just not it's not a good experience while you're not in like a desk or your whole setup or whatever.
Well, I found this interesting, and we're starting to get a lot of emails asking us what Linux tablet to use for Linux. And I noticed in here in the Indiegogo page for GPD, they are actually comparing themselves against the Microsoft Surface Go, which technically is a tablet, but you can attach a keyboard to it to make it a system. I think the GPD Micro Pc, actually, the Go has a 10-inch screen. It has better resolution at 1800 by 1200, but less PPI, naturally, because you got a 6-inch screen versus 10-inch. But you have different processors and things. But for the most part, there's some comparable stats. And you can get the Go, I think, for as little as $399. The official price is $499 now. Microsoft Surface Go, you can also install Linux on. And in fact, in my own patron group on Telegram, this question came up again about tablets and Linux. And there's not a lot of good choices, but you do have the Pine tablet coming out eventually for those who are interested. You do have the Microsoft Surface Go and the Microsoft Surface Pro tablets out there that you can install Linux on as an option. There's not a lot of good options, though, right now for a Linux tablet. But I did find it interesting. They were saying that they're competing against, at least in this product comparison, a Microsoft Surface Go. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And I would agree that there's not very many tablets, if any, that are not repurposed in the sense of like the Surface stuff. But I am looking forward to the Pine tablet, on all the Pine stuff, really.
Well, I know one that you're really looking forward to, Michael, because I'm looking forward to this as well, and that's the Pinebook Pro. We've talked about this before. We're going to get a little update here from Zeb, which I'm excited about because I haven't heard it either. But the Pinebook Pro pre-orders are starting soon, as in July 25th, so get ready, because I think this is going to sell out really fast here.
Yeah.
This is kind of like me when I stalk AMD when they release a new product. My wife will sit there with a computer, I'll sit there with a computer, and we just keep refreshing until one of us gets the thing. You may want to do that here. But one of the interesting things that happened this week is Pine64's Lucas did a demo of this device. There was no professional editing. He just did it because somebody asked a question about how does it handle 1080p and 4K. So he recorded unprofessionally just a quick video to show you some things like 1080p and 4K playback using external monitors connected to the USB Type-C. And I can tell you it looked beautiful. There was no screen tearing, no stuttering. It was flipping through screens like nobody's business. Browsing was really snappy. It looked really, really final and good. Like, it did not look like a beta product at all, which is exactly what I was hoping we would see. But you can go out and check that video. We'll have a link to it in the show notes. But Zeb, you have one, right? You have one of these early devices. What's it been like, my friend?
Well, unfortunately, I had one because I had to give it back.
No!
But I was using it for the whole weekend. And I was fortunate enough to meet Lucas up in central London. And we sat down and he pulled a laptop out and put it on the table. And I thought, okay, when's he going to get the Pinebook out? And then he went, oh, but here we go. I said, surely that can't be the Pinebook Pro. This thing looked so good. I thought he'd pulled out a £700 or £800, I don't know, Mac or something, because it looked really, really good. So I thought, oh, okay, here we go. I picked it up. And it was sturdy, and it was solid, and it was well built. And I lifted the lid up, and there was a lot of not friction, but there was a lot of tension on the lid. So I knew straight away that this was a quality product. And he went, oh, sorry about the lid. We've made some improvements to the hinges. And I thought, well, I wasn't going to complain about the lid. So he went off to get some coffees, and I sat down and powered it up, and whoosh, within about 10, 12 seconds, it was ready to use. So I did some typing in a basic notepad, and the keyboard felt light and good and wasn't spongy and didn't sag in the middle like some of the cheaper notebooks that you can get do. While he wasn't there as well, I did a test where I picked it up by the corner, expecting it to sort of droop slightly because of the way it's built. Solid as a rock, stayed perfectly level. And I thought, yeah, he's still not looking. So I picked it up off the desk by the hinge. The hinge didn't move. The angle at which the laptop was open did not move. And that was holding the whole laptop up by the hinge. So that was fantastic. Don't get me started about the trackpad. It's probably one of the single best trackpads I've used.
Wow.
On a low-end computer.
That's awesome to hear.
It felt smooth. It felt right. Double tap worked out of the box. It was great. So he then came back, and I had to then start using it properly and not trying to mess about and break with it. So we had a fantastic discussion for about an hour, and then I had the pleasure of bringing it home. And like you guys, one of the first things I wanted was, yeah, this thing's going to play 4K video, yeah, whatever. So I got it in, powered it all up, connected it up to my 4K video, went to YouTube, picked a couple of 4K videos and went play. This is good. I'm going to get it. Right, okay, half screen, two 4K videos. Play. It's doing it. Right, I'm going to get you. 4 YouTube screens, 4 4K videos playing. Not a stutter, not a hesitation, not a tear.
Goodness.
All cool. Played brilliantly. Now, one of the things that Lucas had reminded me is because this was a prototype, he said, I'm sorry if it gets a bit hot. So I thought, well, let's just keep going. So I kept these videos playing on repeat for about an hour. Lifted the laptop up expecting to burn my hand from underneath. Yes, it was warm, but it wasn't what I would call hot. And yet they're going to make improvements before the main one comes out. So they're going to introduce some larger heat sinks that go down the edge of the keyboard. So just to take it away from where the power supply sits in the corner. Everything I threw at this beast, it just worked.
That attention to detail on a $199 laptop is
It's ridiculous. There was no way anybody would say that cost $190. If you took it into a pub and just said to everybody, here you go, boy, how much? They'd all be talking $399, $450, £500. It was that good. Whereas compared to that one, people would look at that and go, oh, yeah, that's probably a couple of £100.
No, like that's the thing about this is that this is the original Pinebook, and I've had this for quite a while, and it's so useful and come in handy. It actually looks pretty decent. Like, it looks good. And, once you start using it, you can hold it, and you can see there's a little bit of a flex. Like, you can kind of see it. And this is kind of interesting because it is a plastic. This is a plastic one, and the new one's going to be the complete like a metal alloy, aluminum alloy or something.
Yeah.
And even though this one has issues, I think that this is still a solid, really good laptop.
You used it the whole time at the conference.
Yeah, I used it at the conference. I went on a couple trips this year, and I took it with me every time, and it was the thing I went for every time because it has a good trackpad too, like even the original one does. And like overall, I think this is a very good laptop. And even if you don't count the fact that it's $100, it's a good laptop. And in talking about that it's $100, it's ridiculous. And like I'm totally can't wait for the new one.
Yeah, and one of the other interesting things that happened was he gave me a couple of memory cards to put into the side to try other operating systems. Now, one of them was Chromium. So
gross.
If you want your kids to have an alternative to a Chromebook to take to school and use an operating system that they can use like everybody else is using, they use Chromium, and then when they get a bit older, they just reflash it and put a version of Linux on there.
And also, it could be like an alternative to a Chromebook that has the Chromium OS in, like you said, on the SD card, and then take the SD card out, and you have a real actual Linux system.
I like how you guys are thinking now, yeah.
And then that way you can like the kid can play with the Chromebook and take it to school and work it, but all your stuff is still separate, and you can still have the benefit of having the Pinebook as well. So it's a double usage.
That same a marketing price of $199, which I think that's what most Chromebooks are they?
Yeah, actually,
some
of them
are more expensive. Yeah. And I love that idea actually, because I know when my son gets a little older, the schools actually require them to get a Chromebook. That is in the school list of items. So now I can not get a Chromebook. I can support a hardware company that actually supports Linux. I could put that SD card in with the Chromium. They can use it at school, and when he comes home, he could use an adult operating system.
Exactly.
Sounds good.
Exactly.
And USB Type-C port on there to power up your monitors. And I'm pretty sure, I'll need to get you to check the double specs, but I'm pretty sure that will also charge it once the proper Pinebook comes out. But on my model, it wasn't working because it was only a prototype. And to think the list of modifications that he gave me that are going to make this thing even better when it comes out, it's going to be astounding. It's certainly on my list of, I've got to get one.
Yeah, brilliant. Like there's also they're going to have multiple different keyboard layouts. Not multiple, but there's only going to be two I know of. But they're going to have different keyboard layouts so that when you can choose when you order to pick which layout you prefer. I think that's not going to be on the first pre-order though. I think that's on the once the pre-orders are done, then you can choose. But I think the pre-orders is like here's the first version of the Pinebook Pro. I looked at the difference between the two. It's like there's two keys that are different depending on which layout you want, so it doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah. But the super key is also going to be a little Pinebook logo.
Yes, that's one of the best things about they're not only they're making a good piece of hardware. An existing one I have is a really good piece of hardware, and I don't necessarily need the Pinebook Pro, but because I have this one, but reasons. But it also is worth noting that as you said, that they're going so far as to carry them out the polish to the point of even making the key the super key becoming like a logo key for Pine, and that is the attention to detail that is not only impressive but kind of shocking for the price point that they're selling this at.
And I guess the other thing that I found interesting wasn't necessarily about the product itself, but the person I was talking to. Now, it was obvious that Lucas knew what he was talking about, and he was innovative, and he had loads of fantastic ideas for the additional Pinebook stuff that's going to come out. And I said to him, "Whoa, you haven't even got this one out yet. Aren't you worried, or are you going to make me worried that the Pinebook Pro will come out and then 6 months later?" No, he said. This is just, let's try and future-proof this. What we want to do, he said, we've learned some mistakes that we made with the Pinebook. We're not going to make those mistakes with the Pinebook Pro, and we are going to make sure that we've got a solid base, a solid distribution for this product before we even begin to think about the next model. So don't think you're going to buy this and a year later it's going to be out of date. They are really looking to establish a solid base with this one.
Very nice.
Okay, so onto a subject that seems to be making a lot of noise around the internet at the moment, and that's a product from Fedora called Silverblue. So there's a lot of buzz around Silverblue, which was formerly named the Atomic Workstation. And every now and again, we get some emails and comments asking us to check out this product. Well, I've seen what it can do. I've seen a couple of videos. I haven't got a clue how it does what it does. So, Michael, dig me out of a hole here and take over this subject.
Wait, why did you assume it's Michael that has to? Yeah, Michael, can you tell us about this?
So the Silverblue is an interesting distribution because it is basically like Fedora Workstation, but it also has the way it's structured is very different. So I'm just going to here's a quote from what their website says, and then I'll explain what they mean by it. They say Fedora Silverblue is an immutable desktop operating system. It aims to be extremely stable and reliable, and also aims to be an excellent platform for developers and those using container-focused workflows. So there's a lot of buzzwords there. But what it basically is saying is that they are using a very containerized, layered system of Fedora. So the majority of the system is not modified when you make changes to yourself. So if you install new applications or you install even tools to do command line tools and stuff like that, they have different subsets of how you install them to not change the actual underlying system. So the base system is not modified by your personal usage. It is a layer on top, so that if something changes with the base system, everything that you change on top is not affected by what you've done. So what the system changes. So it's an interesting aspect. So it's not necessarily like Puppy Linux, but in the way that it's layered is kind of similar. So it's really cool because of the idea that if you have a whole system upgrade, in some systems you're worried about, well, if I do this upgrade, it's going to crash it. It might break something here or there. Well, the Silverblue is because the base system is not modified by when you make changes, you can very easily transition your updates, very quickly without having to worry about the stuff that you put on top modifying anything because it's not touching it. That's why they use flat packs. They also have a package layering system, and they use this thing called Toolbox, which is the same kind of thing as a package layering, but it's more like containers for command line tools. So the toolbox are for command line, flat packs are for GUI, and then the package layering system is for like extra features that are modifications to more.
Well, yeah, toolbox can allow you to install different versions, just like you could in Red Hat and other things, different versions of OSs and things. But the best way I've kind of been able to understand how it works is almost comparing it a little bit, although it's different, to how OpenSUSE ButterFS snapshots work. So every time you do an upgrade in OpenSUSE, every time you type in the zipper update, it takes a snapshot beforehand of everything, and then if you reboot, let's say when you did that new update, the new kernel comes out and it crashed stuff on your system. In your grub, you will have the option to go back because it keeps that snapshot of that prior version. In a similar way, with Fedora, although it's more containerized, you have your base OS. Then when you do an upgrade, it will create basically another snapshot that you can then roll back to the prior one if there was an issue.
Yes.
So it works very similar in the grub way. Then your packages are separate. It uses RPM OS tree for its packages as well as flat packs.
Yeah, the RPM OS tree is for the package layering system.
Yeah, exactly.
But they typically want you to use the toolbox or to use the flat pack because that's the more separation. Because the RPM OS tree is very good but it's more integrated into the system rather than the structure of how flat packs work, because they're more separated. So they want you to use as much separation as possible, so that way that anytime you change something, there's no conflict, sort of. And as you're saying, like the snapshot system is a very important piece. It also has like the snapshot is updating for like the actual whole system when you do the upgrades. But there's also the atomic part of this. Like it used to be called the atomic workstation. The reason why it was that is because the atomic approach is the transactional updates for basically everything. So when you update something, the transactional updates or atomic updates is that you're going to not only have snapshots, but it's only going to pull in the things that are different. So you don't actually have to install every single aspect that's changing. So if you upgrade your system of Fedora Silverblue, you're not updating the entire system. You're updating only what is necessary, but at the same time still have the ability to do rollbacks and everything. So it is very similar.
Sounds like it could be a really good bulletproof system, but it also sounds quite complex. How is it for the general user? How easy will it be for them to install and manage?
Well, I think it's going to eventually be brilliant. I love, first of all, the OpenSUSE Btrfs snapshot system, which is the closest thing, even though they're not exactly related at all. I can relate it to because of the abilities for rollbacks. Is just incredible. I can redo a system so quickly now, right? It's like a snap of the fingers, but it's still annoying. But plus, sometimes you may have to reinstall packages and other things. But having that Btrfs rollback option that I've had to use, I think, twice now, is just incredible. You just go into your grub menu, reboot, choose the prior snapshot before you did the update, type in one command to make it permanent, and boom, you're back on. That's your new system. Like the update never happened. It's so amazing to use in production, and the ability to do that with Fedora now is so powerful. The only issues I could see, Zeb, in that people were complaining about was there were certain packages and things that you kind of have to go install. Like there is NVIDIA proprietary drivers there for you, but there's still problems. It looks like with NVIDIA folks being able to get those to work properly, or certain sandbox functionality for things like printer drivers and stuff like that aren't necessarily available in flat packs.
Yeah.
And
it's still kind of an experimental stage. It's not really experimental in the sense of beta, but it is definitely it's more of like an innovative section. Like as we talked about previously, that Fedora likes to innovate a lot of things, and this is kind of what they're doing here. So there's certain packages you're not going to be able to have, there's certain drivers that are not going to work. Depending on what your hardware is, and also you're not going to be able to choose what DE is. If you like GNOME, then you're good to go. But if you don't, that's really not an option.
But as far as usability, Zeb, you install it and you wouldn't know you were in anything different.
Oh yeah,
initially. Right. It would look just like Fedora 30. You would open up GNOME Software Center, and then you would see initiating flat packs because you're not going to have
anything else. Yeah. So. Again, just for the noob side of me, is this something similar to Cube's OS that keeps everything containerized?
No. It's.
I think it's. I took. Well, it may not be related at all. Mike will give you the technical details of why, probably, but it reminded me very much of that concept.
It's similar in the sense of the goal and the structure of what they want to do. Like that's the end goal is to have containerized system. Cubes is more of like everything's virtualized. It's not necessarily just containers. It's like everything you do is a virtual machine, and they have, but they also have different entire distros that you're running inside of cubes, and so you can have like a Debian cube or you can have a Fedora cube all at the same time.
But you could do that with the toolbox here potentially, which uses Podman, right?
No. I'm saying like you could actually have you could have Debian and Fedora at the same time in different cubes.
Got you. Yeah.
So like the cubes is very different, but they're also trying to do the same thing of having a more easily rolled and easily deployed system, and like having rollbacks in case issues happen. And one of the things that it makes this an interesting project is that Silverblue has, using this immutable structure or the atomic structure, allows them to have the base system to be almost permanent across all users, in the sense that it's still going to be updated and everything, but you're going to have, rest assured that whatever happens on your system is going to be similar to what someone else happens to their system, other than the hardware support kind of thing. But if you have an update to the whole system, they don't have to test 1,000 different configurations to see if it works. They have, using this structure allows them to be able to test in one go, and it applies to everywhere. So like there is a huge potential there too. So it is. I think in the future, the Silverblue has a lot of potential and could be the point of like maybe someday replacing the regular Fedora.
That's what they say in there, that it may one day be that people are asking that question. Why not just make this a thing and that's Fedora? But they're still testing out a lot of this stuff. And I see why people are so excited about it. Now I understand why I'm getting so many, we're starting to get a lot of emails and comments. Have you tried Silverblue? Have you tried Silverblue? Because to me, the idea of it in concept and what they're doing is very exciting. I think it is a very cool idea.
Yeah.
But again, bringing it back down to like the sort of like the beginner distro hopper level, how much longer should people give it before they give it a try, do you think? 6 months? 3 months?
There's no telling, and it's not going to be at, like, for average users, it's not ready yet. So there's no way to tell.
I would suggest trying it now for fun, because but I would not put it on, if you're a newer user, distro hopper who's not super experienced, I would not put it on a production machine. Go play with it in a VM. Sure. Do things like that, and
it's not like a beta. It's got a solid development, and it's got solid releases, and it works quite well. But it is limited in the fact that it's very innovative and very new. So it's not going to have absolutely everything that you possibly want. So it's not going to be as in the sense of like what Ryan said, it's not really production ready for the average user. But it is. You have a spare laptop you want to put it on, definitely try it out.
Yep.
So next in the show, we're going to switch to some gaming. And that is, first up, the Google Stadia has...
Gross.
Yes, I agree. Gross completely. The Grossel Stadia has given us more information about what's coming in their service. And if you haven't heard of it, the Grossel Stadia is a game streaming service from Grossel. It's getting closer and closer, and they're going to be doing a way for you to use your laptop or whatever Chrome gross structure to stream a game that's on their servers, allowing you to play with a device that might not be as powerful enough to play the game. So in some ways, kind of interesting, and also gross. But the director of products for Google, or Grossel, did an AMA on Reddit, and here are some highlights from the Q&A. So the people were asking, like, they want a clarification about whether or not this is like a Netflix for games, and how are they handling it. And they say it's more like the Xbox Live or PSN Plus, where you pay for a monthly fee, and then you get like the Pro plan, and you get a free game per month because you're paying for that monthly fee. So there are no free games on the Stadia base plan, which is what we already knew about that part. But they're saying that, which is what people were worried about, they have confirmed that it is definitely gross. If you have a Stadia service and it is discontinued, you will be able to download the saves and metadata, but not the game. So you pay you
own nothing.
You own nothing. So you pay the full price of that game, but you cannot play the game if the service is down or if they discontinue the entire service. So,
and going back to the previous point, that one free game per month, does that mean at the end of the year you've got 12 free games, or that you've got one game to play for a month and hurry up because it's going to disappear at the end of the first month?
No, you get to keep,
based on the PSN Plus, you keep it, but if it's, we don't know about what Google's plans are, or Grossel's plans are.
Yeah, so this is interesting. The more that comes out about this, the more I feel like at least my opinion is to avoid this product at all costs. There's no free games on the Stadia base. The reality is you're not saving a ton of money on this by not having a console, because some of the controllers themselves are 25% the cost of the console themselves.
Yeah.
So, and you're going to have issues with ISPs with throttling, and their answer to that in the AMA was, oh, well, the ISPs will adapt. Yeah, they've been so great at adapting in the past to helping consumers out.
Not only is that ridiculous, but also what they're saying is they said it's going to adapt to like what they did for YouTube and stuff. So what makes me laugh about it is, like, not only are they saying this is a problem, they're admitting it's a problem. They're saying, well, who cares about net neutrality? It doesn't matter. We'll just force them to deal with having this kid's data cap, and forcing you have to deal with, maybe you might have to switch the ISP you have, or maybe you have to do it on some mobile's ISP or whatever. So,
well, the ISPs will fix it by charging you a higher monthly rate by giving you more bandwidth.
Yeah, it's quite possible. There's also arguments of like one of the things they could be meaning is that they will adapt by having a partnership with Grossel, and that they have this weird thing where they allow this certain part of, just because if you use Stadia, you get this extra exception to your package or something, so that, you paying extra money to the Google in order to get this stuff set up. And it's just like this weird, I like the fact that Stadia is based on Debian, and it's powering by Vulkan. I like all that stuff, but, gross.
Yeah, here's the thing. I could have done this AMA for Google on their behalf and answered all these questions without having any insider information, just knowing how Google is. Like somebody asked, will there be social features like chat? Of course. How are they going to get all your metadata and link all your friends together so that they can sell them advertising? Of course, they're going to have social media built into it. They talked about one of the things here is, well, this was the most interesting thing to me. One of the number one questions was when we already talked about this, but what happens when you discontinue it or if you decide not to continue with Stadia? Think about that for a second. That one of the largest tech companies out there, that one of the questions that's most important, not to cynics like just us here, but the general public is, what happens when you basically abandon another project like you always do? What do we get to keep our game? Like, that is the question people want to know about this new technology that you've supposedly released and created and out there. That was one of the top questions people want to know. And that just shows you why I would never support this product. And I have a PlayStation. I get the free game every month. It's a really cool perk to have out there for it. And I'm way more excited on the gaming front to see what the new PlayStation or Xbox comes out with than I am to see anything that Google has to offer here. With that said, there are some advantages for Linux, because if you would download a Chrome browser on your Linux machine, any of these games that may not work in Linux today, you could play through Stadia at the cost of your privacy, which makes me wonder, why are you in Linux in the first place? But they did make a good point here that one of the cool features was the director who did the AMA said their favorite feature was being able to play the latest Assassin's Creed on his son's old and dirt cheap Chromebook. It is a cool idea if you happen to live in an area where you have gigabyte internet and
really solid internet.
Yeah. So what gets me though is you've got, where did the marketing guys get this idea that gamers would pay this monthly subscription and be happy about never owning the game? It's just incredulous.
I think they might be even talking about just like the casual user who's like plays the games on their phones or something. I don't know, but it is weird that, and also a lot of people are not going to be aware that they're not going to own the games that they have purchased, because there are, like, you get this free plan that's whatever, for you get that one, or not free plan, but you get the free game in the pro plan that you're paying for. And if you stop paying for that pro plan, you don't have the game anymore. You can't play the game anymore. So you don't. It's not really free. It's a temporary free vendor lock-in thing. That's an interesting
question, because if you've paid the pro plan for 6 months and then you opt out. Before you opt out, can you download your data and your metadata and your game saves?
You can download the game saves and the metadata for a game that you do not have access to anymore.
If they discontinue,
I think it's supposed to be for in general, but it doesn't even matter in my opinion. Even if they do it for in general, you still can only download the game saves and the metadata. You can't get the game. So you still have to go buy the game in order to use that saves and metadata. And to make it even more gross, if you buy the game, like if you actually buy a game, because they're still selling games on Stadia, you still don't own that game. You pay $60 full price for a game that you do not own. And even if you cancel your pro plan and you don't have that game anymore. There is some sort of benefit there. There's like a little bit of an asterisk. If you buy a game, you can still use the free plan to play it, but you definitely cannot download it, and you do not own it. You still are dealing with whether it's on Stadia or not.
So, Michael, we were asked in patron chat. Eric asked, "How is this any different than Steam? If Steam goes away, you can't access those games."
Well, I would say that the difference is that the games that you're on Steam are downloaded to your computer, and you can play them just in general. So you have access to them.
If Steam went away, which by the way, they're not Google, they have actually a track record of existing and not killing every project that they start. So that's one big difference there. Right. Again, if you go back to the AMA, that was the number one question from the community, not tech people, the community in general. But Steam also does allow you to download locally, even when you're certain bans. There is one ban that I think is their top ban that won't allow you to even download games. But even when you're banned in for certain things in Steam, you can still download the games and play them locally that you bought on Steam. So that would be a difference.
But you still have to have the Steam client to play those games, or how would I fire up Rise of the Tomb Raider without going into Steam first?
I mean, you still would need a Steam client, but the Steam client is also downloaded, so you don't have to be connected to the internet to use certain things. So it
wouldn't connect you to the internet, and you would never get any more updates, but you could play the content.
The games that you have purchased, you would still have access to play them.
That's fine. Yeah, that's cool.
So it's not the ideal option to be able to play it anytime you want, regardless of whatever. But at the same time, you're not totally. The difference is that you're not totally without if you decide to stop using it. And at the same time, with Steam, you're not paying on a monthly basis anyway, so you just get the game and you just keep it. So
absolutely, yeah. So for Google Stadia, next.
Yep.
Right. Next.
Our next article in here, which is Steam is celebrating the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11. And how are they celebrating it? By giving you more awesome deals.
Right.
So if you're not broke from the Humble Bundle sales and the Steam Summer sales, you're going to be broke now. I'm really broke after the Ryzen stuff and the Steam Summer sales and all of this, but I love space games. Me and Michael did we got so much good feedback on this.
Yep.
We did we just decided this one hour practically before we did it to do a Star Trek, our favorite Star Trek episodes and discussion.
We were actually
like two video
before we even talk about that part. Like we were sitting there watching. And it was like, and Star Trek comes on, and I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome. I love this episode. And he was like, wait, how much do you like Star Trek? I was like, let me tell you. And like, no, let's do a video instead.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, he started talking about it, and I'm like, shut up, we're gonna go do a video on this. So we did it.
Before you get into that though, you did get it wrong because it's Deep Space Nine.
Oh, you're so wrong, Seth. But Michael probably agrees with you.
I put it. It's at my number 2. Is Deep Space Nine is good. It's good. So, you should just watch that video. Go watch the video. I have it linked in the show notes.
So we love space. We love the technology out there, and obviously 50th anniversary of Apollo 11. Steam loves it as well. So they're going to give you a bunch of discounts on space-related games out there: space combat, space exploration. And you can also check out the video that Michael and I did on Star Trek if you want to add in that as well. And that's free, so it won't even break your wallet there. But some of the games that are Linux-based that are up to most of these are 30, 60, 75, most are 75% off and 180% off game here. I've played Faster Than Light, so I can speak to that one being an amazing game. Sid Meier's Civilization, if you are somebody who really wants to spend some time thinking and strategizing in a game, that's amazing. Kerbal Space Program continues to astound me what people create and build with. I don't know if they still consider it real close to real physics in Kerbal Space Program, but apparently it's used in some capacity in actual schools and colleges and things.
Part of Kerbal Space Program has like if you get the add-ons, it starts changing the physics and stuff, but like the base level game is, I wouldn't say it's like 100% accurate of physics, but they put a lot of effort into making sure that based on what you build, whether it'll work or not. So like there is a lot of interesting, aspects to it. And I think that Kerbal Space Program is probably one of the most fun, ridiculous games that actually still has a thing to kind of teach you like physics and stuff. So,
Yeah, and then there's a couple of games in here I haven't played, but I know are popular, like Planetary Annihilation. I've not played that one yet, but it's available for Linux. There's Halcyon 6, Starbase Commander. I'm probably butchering that to death. Surviving Mars and Lovers in Dangerous Space Time. So get your romance on in space, apparently.
Why not?
So those are the Linux ones that are out there. But if the sale's still going on by the time you hear this, go check that out. And thanks to Gaming on Linux for listing out the Linux versions of the games that are on sale during the Apollo 11 celebration there. And just another cool thing from Steam that they're doing.
Yep, we'll have a link to the show in the show notes to the direct link to the filter search of like the games that are Linux based and based on this sale. And also, I just want to give another thing about just a brief moment to say how awesome it is that 50 years and it's the Apollo 11 space station and everybody's still so pumped about it, or the space station, but that's the moon landing, and it's so awesome that Steam and all these different things are doing like specials to celebrate it, because it definitely deserves it.
Absolutely.
So on to the software spotlight, and this week we've got a double entry for you. We have software spotlights for screen recording, Peak, and Simple Screen Recorder. Now, what was interesting is I'd never heard of Peak before, and when I looked at it, I thought, wow, this is really, really good. Mm-hmm. So Peak makes it easy to create short screencasts of a screen area. It was built for the specific use case of recording screen areas as an example, showing UI features of your own apps, or for showing a bug in bug reports. And that side of it, I think, is fantastic, because a picture paints 1,000 words, and you might not be able to describe correctly to a developer what's going on. Grab Peak, grab a screenshot and a little animated GIF of what's happening, file that through, and they'll probably be able to work it out. So what can Peak do? It can select a screen region to record. It can save the recorded video as an optimized animated GIF. It can record directly to WebM or MP4 format. It has a simple user interface optimized for the task. It will automatically downscale recorded videos. Support for HIDPI screens. And it works inside a GNOME shell Wayland session using X-Wayland. So have any of you guys specifically used Peak?
I use Peak a lot, just specifically to create the animated GIFs out there if I want to create one, because it's so easy to use. But it has a ton of features in there. And we talked about OBS not working correctly in Wayland before as a screen recording option. Peak is one of the few tools out there that do work in Wayland. So the code's out there for the OBS team if they want to figure out how it works. I did try, because one of the things, and we're going to get in a simple screen recorder here in a second, one of the things that when I'm doing benchmark tests, and specifically for frames per second, because everybody wants to see the exciting, 340 frames per second in Batman Arkham or whatever. They want to see the max FPS that I can get out of the new equipment. Well, when you're recording the screen at the same time, you lose 15 to up to 30 frames per second when you're doing that screen. So when people want to see that absolute max, I have a hard time being able to capture that, because OBS is a heavy screen recorder. And it generally I'll lose lots of FPS. So sometimes I'll just take pictures of it or try to record on my phone and that type of stuff. But Simple Screen Recorder allows you to be able to record your screen. You still lose some frames, I would say like maybe 5 to 10, but not as much as you do with OBS. And Peak is kind of a little bit above Simple Screen Recorder. It requires more power than Simple Screen Recorder, but not as much as OBS. So those are some reasons, at least, that I switch between the different tools there for screen recording.
Yeah, I think Peak is a good option, especially for people who use Wayland, because Screen Recorder is good, but every time I've talked to anybody who has seen Peak, they would always say like they use Screen Recorder and then they switch to Peak because it has so much more features. And it is a little bit more heavy because of the animated GIF stuff, because in order to do that, you have to do a lot of processing. And animated GIFs are great because they're supported basically everywhere, but they're gigantic file sizes. So it is really cool that they have the MP4 and WebM options. So if you want to do it, you don't have to use the GIF option. But I've seen a lot of people request being able to easily make a GIF. But this day and age, I think video is ubiquitous enough that you don't have to worry about GIFs anymore. So just saying, maybe use the other stuff anyway. So you mentioned Simple Screen Recorder. That's our other pick, and Simple Screen Recorder is probably my favorite quick access screen recorder. I think Peak is great, but the amount of stuff that you can, and it has a lot of great features, but I think Simple Screen Recorder has a little bit more features that are like very powerful, but at the same time laid out in a very simple way. In the sense of like Simple Screen Recorder is not necessarily like just a basic recorder. It does have a ton of features. You can control like the audio that it records. You can control the region it's positioned at. And one of the things that I like the most about most screen capture stuff have a thing where you can select the region. But once you select that region, you can't really move the selection easily. Whereas Simple Screen Recorder has an option where you can just like enter the pixels that you want it to be based on like the top left corner of your screen. So you can move it very, very fine, specific, exactly to where you want it. And that is a really cool feature that I like about it. And it's definitely just a simple thing that a lot of things you don't even think about having it, but just having the ability to just move it exactly
but
where you
this
want.
doesn't work in Wayland yet, right? Is that still
Right.
the case?
I'm pretty sure that Simple Screen Recorder does not work in Wayland.
You know, it's interesting because this whole OBS thing, they're at least for me, the OBS would be a big issue for moving to Wayland, like we talked about before. But Simple Screen Recorder, they even have the experimental streaming options now, which is exciting. So it's experimental. They're still working on it. But the idea that I could stream to Twitch or YouTube, because me and Michael and Zeb will sometimes do gaming live and things, to be able to do that in there is awesome. The only thing they would really be missing that OBS has at that point that they don't would be the ability to do kind of studio mode transition,
scene management stuff.
Scene management stuff. If they could add that in, because there may be a case where OBS is like, no, we're not updating to Wayland, for a long time, and we may not have options because a lot of distros are switching to Wayland by default to do screen recording. So I'm kind of hoping Simple Screen Recorder or Peak or somebody gets in there and starts pumping in these features. We have other options to use if that's the case, because I hate that we're dependent on, we have a single point of failure here in the screen recording realm when it comes to
That's true.
this.
I do like the fact that they have the live streaming stuff. That's really cool. I haven't tried it myself, but it does seem like it has a lot of potential. And I do agree completely. Like, there are times when I've tried to record a gameplay that I did, or like a couple times I'd have weird bugs in a game that are just funny, and I wanted to make a video of them. And the OBS is just kind of too heavy for that on my computer, and Simple Screen Recorder just did it perfectly, no problem. Just good to go.
Yeah. But please check out the link in the notes about the features of Simple Screen Recorder, because there are literally dozens of options that Ryan's put into the document here of what it does. So Simple Screen Recorder by name, very, very accomplished program for doing your screen recording.
Yeah, the Simple was he created the name based before he decided to add all these different features, and he was like, he's like, so now it's simple in the sense that it's a simple path of you do this part, then you do this part, then you do this part. Now you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Up next in the show is our tips and tricks of the week, and that is FFmpeg. More specifically, we're going to do a specific tip about FFmpeg, because if you haven't seen it, FFmpeg is one of the most important pieces of software on the Linux platform, because it is what powers all the video editors. It powers all the compression tools, basically if you manipulate video in any kind whatsoever, you're using FFmpeg to do it. And one of the things about FFmpeg is, well, it's ridiculously complicated. And having different, this is going to be maybe we can do a series of tips for FFmpeg because there's so much of it. But so first of all, we're going to talk about converting different media types of audio and video. So for example, this is actually pretty simple to do, and it is like you just type in the FFmpeg and you do tac-i, and then input file name dot whatever the file it is. Then you put space output file name dot whatever video you format you want to convert to, and that's it. So it's a really easy way to actually even efficiently convert a video from one format to the other. But FFmpeg can go a ridiculously far. You can do so much with it.
Yeah, so I had to this was part of the problem I talked about earlier in recording the video on AMD that I had, is Lightworks prefers everything to be in MP4. It does not like FLV files. And so I installed this new Pop! OS and forgot to go into settings in OBS and change it to record in MP4, and it recorded in FLV. Normally, that's not a big deal, but the recording I had for the installation was massive hours of footage here that needed to be converted. So I was like, I'll go to Handbrake, which uses FFmpeg in the background as I understand it, but I'll go to Handbrake, which I always do, which is a GUI tool, to convert the file format. No big deal, except I guess the file was too big, and Handbrake basically would just hang. It would never move past hanging. So I started looking for options to do this through the terminal, because I thought, well, maybe if I take out the GUI portion of this and do it manually. And I found this FFmpeg-i You put in the input file name that you want to convert, and then the output file name, you can make it whatever you want, and the new format you want, .mp4, hit enter, boom. It just goes and does it. It does it super fast, and my file was converted, worked perfectly. So this is, I'm going to use this all the time now going forward, because it's just so powerful and so fast to do it through the terminal, as most things are faster through the terminal than a GUI.
Yeah, and actually, the FFmpeg is super useful in so many different ways. Like, you can do all kinds of stuff with it. And I've done video editing for a very long time, and I've also done even weird decisions of editing through the command line through FFmpeg, because it can do a ton of stuff. And what's really good about FFmpeg is that it has this ability to automatically detect the source data of the existing file. So it keeps the same proportions of the video, it keeps the same quality as much as close as possible, the same bit rate and all that stuff. So all you have to do is put in the TACI and the file name stuff, like Ryan said, and then it just figures out the rest by itself. So that's one of the things that makes FFmpeg super powerful. But you can go ridiculously far, and you can control every aspect of each metadata and change whatever you want.
It's the arch of video editors.
It's the LFS of video editing.
Converting.
The KDE of video editors.
It's more like the Linux from scratch, because it can go. It has superpowers, but it also has some weird quirks. So, for example, if you don't have the wrong order of certain parameters, it won't work. So you got to learn.
A question for you: as we know, different versions of Linux will have different versions of FFmpeg. Is this a universal feature? So whether you've got the version that's in Ubuntu, which might be a couple of versions out, or you've got the latest in Arch, that simple instruction will work. Yeah, right.
For the converting for the files in FFmpeg, that basic will work in pretty much every FFmpeg for the past 10, 15 years or so.
Cool.
Like, no problem. There are a lot of different features that are putting into FFmpeg every single time they make a new release that are not always available in every distro, but something like that is definitely in there. What actually is kind of funny, because previous episode we had Noah doing a remote thing, and then we didn't have a video for Noah, so I didn't think about promoting it in the beginning of the episode that Noah wasn't there, and I didn't think about putting it in the video that Noah wasn't there. So there's a couple comments that were hilarious about people saying, I was having a staring contest with Noah, and Noah was very good.
Still.
Yeah, because I did a still image of it, and I used FFmpeg to make that still image, because yes, I could do it in Kdenlive, and I tested to see how well it would work in Kdenlive to do that, and it worked fine, but the rendering was going to take a very long time. It was going to take up to 4 or 5 hours to render just a still image across the entire thing. And now, granted, it's an 2-hour show sometimes, so it does take a long time to render. But if you did, when I did it in FFmpeg, which, to be fair, this is one of those really complicated, ridiculous commands to make this work, but I could do a still image overlay and specifically put it where I want it to be and have the right proportions where I want it and all that stuff, and just let it go automatically. And once I set that up, it took maybe 30 minutes to 45 minutes or so to render out the same thing that would have been done in like 4 or 5 hours in Kdenlive. So FFmpeg is super powerful, but it does require you to learn, certain kind of esoteric, obscure structures, because it is very custom to its own thing. But it is so powerful. I actually made
learn to voodoo and be powerful. There you go.
Basically.
TLDR. So a big thank you to each and every one of you for supporting us by watching or listening. However you do it, we love our patrons. And since Noah isn't here, our Ko-fi supporters as well. I just want to give a special shout out to all of you for your tremendous, incredible support that you give us each and every month. We do a live show for our patrons. So come join us if you want to be a part of the show. Watch us live. Watch us make our mistakes. Get additional content that you're not going to hear in the edited show at all. And you can do this for just $1 single. You could find that in your couch cushion right now if you tried. That's darn near free.
Right?
Absolutely. And because Noah's not here this week, I need to step in for him. And that's right, because we are now on Ko-Fi. As a way you can support the show, Ko-Fi offers a nice monthly option that will allow you the same perks as a patron. There will be a link in the show notes and on our website to join Ko-Fi. The perks including things like access to live shows and edited versions of the show, as well as our sincere gratitude. So, as Ryan said, you can join for very, very little amount and become that special Ko-Fi patron.
I love it. It's what you get, Noah, for not showing up.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, back to me again. We need you to send us those emails. We love getting those emails, and it's always a bit of a challenge to decide which email to pick. But as you saw this week, we had a very simplistic one. And it was because of that simplicity that it led to quite a lot of discussion. So let us know what you think. Do you have any burning questions? You can email us at comments@destinationlinux.org, or you can drop a comment on our Telegram group, our Discord group, our Twitter group, our Mastodon group, and probably about 30 other things that Michael has concocted for us on destinationlinux.org/contact.
Can we take a minute on the Telegram group here? Because our Telegram group is exploding, and we are one of the biggest, I think, Telegram groups out right now. Close to, if not the biggest one. And so it's worth joining. There is so many awesome people and developers, and you'll see people make comments about a random software piece, and then the next one is the person who actually developed the software sitting there. That's happened multiple times. There's like 750 people in the group, so definitely there's a lot of conversation, and it's always super interesting. So it's a good point. I mean, I like we have a lot of great conversations in the Telegram group. So if you use Telegram and you like the show, definitely come join us. And one of the Telegram folks who joined said that I guess there's a lot of groups out there where people start a group, but the people who started it don't actually show up in the group. And they were impressed because they said within the first 3 seconds, I talked to Michael, Zeb, and Ryan, and all the hosts. So we're there. We're actually actively a part of it. So go check out our Telegram group. It's worth it.
And what's also fantastic as well is it's multinational. Whether you turn up at 2:00 in the morning your time, or 12 midday, or 6 p.m. at night, there will be a group of people from your area of the world to sit and have a discussion with. And then when you can wake up the next morning, you look at it again, I've got 750 messages to troll through and find out what's been going on. So it really is busy, and there's always something going on in your specific time zone. Yeah.
There's lots of conversations, but also the content doesn't stop here. So we have a lot more fun that you can find on our own channels, where you can check out content for Ryan at youtube.com/DasGeek, where he fills your brains on hardware, software, and all things Linux. And you can check out Zeb at youtube.com/ZebedieBoss, where you can find Zeb driving around at crazy speeds, moving aside caravans that get in his way on his live streams. You can check out my content at tuxdigital.com, where you can see an in-depth weekly Linux GNews podcast called This Week in Linux, and other Linux-related content. And you can check out Noah's content at the AskNoahShow.com, or AskNoahShow.com, where he hosts a weekly talk radio show at 6 p.m. Central on Tuesdays, where you can call in and ask him all kinds of different questions about tech, Linux, business, and also what his favorite type of kufi is. And and also be sure to like that smash button and share the show on social media. So everybody have a great week, and remember that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Did Zeb delete the bottom part out? Is that what happened?
I think he did.
No, I was just looking at that thinking, who's got rid of that? Maybe someone's got to remember now what's going on. I don't know whether it got lost in Michael's cut and pasting earlier, but I certainly didn't delete it.
I don't know. I don't know why it wasn't there. I have no idea.
I thought, Zeb, you were trolling him and you took it out, and I wasn't going to say anything. I was like, that is hilarious. He's going to have to remember it off the cuff. But you didn't miss a beat, Michael.
Nope.
I'm
it was Noah, because there was 4 people online.
There was 4 people
online. I bet Noah did it on his phone and got his own back because I was calling it Ko-Fi.
That son of a gun.